Sweet. It's me again. Fees are awesome. Everyone loves to pay fees. They are a hard reality of business, of economics, I guess. But I'll start here with a story. So my son has gotten paid his allowance of Bitcoin for about 4 years now. And set him up with Moon Wallet, generally working well. He's excited. He's cool because he's still at that age where he thinks, what is that? That's cool. I'll change soon. And it was all fine. Like, sometimes you got it every week, sometimes every other week. And then, these are kind of the average transaction fees. And what happened there was it about a year ago? Was it April 2024 or so when this whole ordinals thing kind of exploded? Fee went up from, something manageable to something completely unreasonable. And I was talking to my son. It's like, sorry, son, I cannot pay you your allowance in Bitcoin right now. Moon just was an on-chain wallet by default. It had Lightning support, right? It would have been cheaper if it was on Lightning, but basically, like, I'm not gonna, pay $100 to send you $6. That does not make sense. So, we get along well. Like, it's like, okay, I'll pay you when it's over. So I'll just give you cash for now, right? But basically, Bitcoin broke. It became unusable due to this. And between me and my son, it's fine. We'll just talk about it. But if let's say I were a merchant, if I were in a business, if it was a different scenario, this would be completely just untenable, right? And we cannot have that. And it seems to happen every 3 years. Right now, it's completely fine, and we're okay. Maybe we forget about the problem a little bit, but this is a really, really big deal. And the average income in Switzerland is about $100,000. In Morocco is about $550. So Swiss person makes 194 times more. So in a global fee market, the impact is 194 times more compared to India. India and Germany, it's like a 23 times difference. So just imagine, like how sensitive this is of an issue in different countries. So I'd love to dig into that. Here's another example here. That's Yashraj complaining that Lightning Splice would be cool too. But there was a splice where basically one of his Lightning channels had to be updated, right? Out of the blue, it's just like it charged him $16 and the UI didn't tell him, right? It was like, hold on, where's my money? Bitcoin UX sucks. And the big problem is that this, if this happens to you once, I'm sure you know it with your bank, it really erodes trust, right? It's easier if it's better if it's like the wallet tells you, like, sometimes these things can happen and we're going to give you a heads up and you can decide what to do. But if it keeps you in the dark and then out of the blue, it's like, bam, that erodes, that kills the trust for a long time. So here, I already mentioned some of these statistics. I dug into that last year a little bit because I wanted to get a feel for how that actually works out. So that's a Swiss person here, monthly income, cost of coffee in Switzerland, did a bit of math. Like, what's the cost of a basic transaction, a multi-sig transaction? What costs the percentage of that of the monthly income? And I'm always kind of looking like, what's reasonable for a person? What are you okay with? Are you okay paying 1% of the transaction in fees? 2%, 3, 4, 5? I just set it to 1%. And I was like, okay, transferring Bitcoin. I'm a Swiss person and I never want to pay more than 1%. I want to have a minimum transaction of like $60, $70, right? And then that's pretty high. And here's the math for India. Like 30% of my monthly income, right? But how often do you transact that much? Super fragile. I also did a little bit of math around, kind of seeing like, okay, you clearly want to get everyone on Light, right? That's going to solve everything. But that puts a lot of pressure, a lot more blocks and splices and things on the network that creates fee pressure, right? And how does that surface? So the more adoption happens, the more usage and payments with the payments, right? We just heard we all want them. That puts a lot of pressure and it makes it even more sensitive. So it's a make or break thing. But in the real world, right, this is really interesting stats. Migrants paid almost more in international fees to send money home than US aid. Like $50 billion. So there's clearly a problem for a lot of people. And if we're really smart, if we're really good, maybe they're like, sweet, I have economic incentive to use it. I don't use it because it's cool or rebellious or so. That makes sense for me financially. Another statistic, 6.4% is the global average money transfer fee. Can we do better? Would be cool. I'm not sure we can. Maybe it's up to us. Credit card fees, 1.1% to 3.15%. You don't feel them when you swipe your credit card. That's baked into the product, but the merchant basically pays for it. In Bitcoin, it's always kind of on you. Maybe there are business models where still in Bitcoin or so, with businesses pays for it, right, for you. That's stuff that I'd like to explore. And then, so that's kind of the math, the behind the scenes and the fees, the emergent property of like the rules in the protocol, the infrastructure, and all the individual people's behavior. But how does it surface? How does it surface for Western Union, StashPay? We already mentioned StashPay says, well, we have low fees, right? But kind of, because they do a bunch of swapping and relatively technical stuff, and their minimum fee is like 47 cents. I don't know, not that low, I would say. The middle one is like, how do we explain fees to users? Do we just say, yeah, they're low, trust us? Do we actually talk about that in detail? And then if you actually talk about it in detail, can anyone make sense of that? Then in Phoenix, we see how things show up inside user interfaces. Like there's a water bucket metaphor to adjust your liquidity. Is that clear? Is that good? Can we do better? Does it communicate well? And then simply, when I actually make a transaction, here's one to Steven, and I think, was that for lunch or so, a couple of days ago? Lightning fee was 113.50 sats, just, yeah, what does that look like? How does that feel for people? Feel okay? So I'd love to dig into all of these things. I would, if you're not familiar with the Bitcoin Design Guide, it is a project that's been around for 5 years, kind of like one of the big projects of the Bitcoin design community. And I would love to kind of explore this fee topic here and then come up with things that then could potentially go into the Bitcoin Design Guide. Because we have builders looking at this, and maybe we can just do the work for them so they don't have to reinvent the wheel. So when someone builds another wallet or so, or redesigns their homepage, like, okay, cool. They already figured out how we should communicate fees in the best way. So I'd love to explore the design space, first of all, then identify some scenarios, the things that maybe, are been helpful for builders in the end, and then sketch that design. And if someone knows a good vibe design tool, it'd be kind of cool to explore as well. And then just create a bunch of material with the goal then that, maybe that could make it then into the Bitcoin Design Guide. So that's it. Mine is clearly the best track, obviously. So join me.
Thank you, Christoph.